So we're here talking to Paul Mangan, aka Clockwork Orchestra, who have just come off, who has just come off stage in the Workmans Club at our Gigonometry Presents gig. So, Paul, how was it for you?
It was great, yeah. It was a really enjoyable gig. Possibly my favourite or second favourite Irish gig ever. It was definitely up there. It's one of the best too. It was a great energy, and it was quite a unique gig as well because it was the first time we played with, second time we played with Thibaut on guitar. So it was, you know, the Clockwork Orchestra live lineup is an ever-changing entity. So
yeah. The first time and only time before tonight that I saw you was in Whelan's at your launch gig. The Irish launch gig anyway. Because the curious thing is that you're not that well known in Ireland. You mainly play in Germany, France, Holland. Tell us, how did that all come about? Why? How?
it's a good question. I'm not quite sure how it came about myself, but the first ever Clockwork Orchestra gig was actually in Berlin in a place called Madame Claude, which is a great venue with furniture on the ceiling, and we were so well received we kind of decided to really pursue Germany as a kind of place to perform, and it seemed like that was where the audience would most appreciate us. So we worked on that, and coming up next week we're playing 4 gigs in Germany, in Frankfurt, Offenbach, Karlsruhe and Stuttgart. But then we play a lot of gigs in middle of Europe, and so we've got some gigs in France coming up, a couple in the Netherlands, and some of these gigs will be just me on my own as well, because Clockwork Orchestra is basically, in terms of recording, it is me, and in terms of the live performance, it can be a variety of people. So we've had various different people in the band live, and so yeah, it's just a matter of finding the audience for this kind of niche music, and
well, I suppose that's another interesting thing. It's about finding the audience, because in my case, and I was talking to another guy upstairs who saw you in Whelan's just by chance, it was us finding you, you know. So we just stumbled upon something and went, that's really kind of special. There's something really interesting going on there. And my first thought was that this guy is very much influenced by magazine and early other Stranglers kind of sounds, but there's also a bit of classical going on in there. And where does all that influence come from? Because it's a real mishmash of interesting genres.
Well, definitely magazine and the Stranglers would definitely be influences. In terms of influences, the new wave period would be a huge thing for me. There was actually a specific album that really got me hooked on that whole kind of slightly offbeat underground new wave stuff called it was called Erg, A Music War, and it was from about, I don't know, early 80s, and it had stuff like XTC, and actually I think magazine themselves might have been on it. Can't remember now, but Devo were on it, all sorts of oddballs were on it, and that really got, Wall of Voodoo was another one, really cool band, and got me hooked on all that kind of stuff. And so in terms of classical music, I would like a little bit, but really I'm not an expert at all. The only kind of classical stuff that I'd be really fond of would be more like really early stuff, like nearly not medieval stuff, but the next kind of Renaissance or whatever, harpsichords and stuff like that. It's more the sound of those instruments though than the actual music itself, because I don't actually listen to much classical music.
Which is a very interesting thing in itself as well. And some of the sounds that you're putting together that we heard tonight upstairs, they're almost kind of children's playground carnival sounds, and yet the album A Fish for a Heart, which is a fantastic piece of work, by the way, should have a label on it, should not be listened to by children, so very dark lyrics and all that kind of stuff. But where does that kind of carnival sound and stuff come from?
Well, I think about things that like influenced me. I mean, part of the reason there's probably that sound is that a lot of the actual subject matters of the songs are stuff slightly to do with childhood anyway. But also like influences, a huge amount of the influences on me were things that were nothing to do with music, like the sounds of those machines that you'd get into as a kid. You know, those machines you put a coin in and you sit in this thing and it would move. It might be shaped like a car or something, and it would play like music. I don't know what you call those things, but the music that would actually play, or early video games and stuff like that. I mean, the generation I'm from have to be influenced by that kind of 8-bit sound because so many people were playing Mega Drives or Nintendos at that time, you know. So it's that would be another aspect of the sounds I'm using, you know.
Yeah, and there's lovely storytelling. I mean, there's lovely childhood images. When I say that the album should have a label, should not be listened to by children, in a way, I would also say the exact opposite as well, because songs like Puddle Fishing, you know, for example, or The Beginning is the End. Is that the title of track 7?
Be the end.
The beginning could be the end, and you talk about sitting at the top of the stairs, and it evokes images of being reprimanded as a child and told to go upstairs to your room, and you're stubborn. Is that kind of the?
Well, that's actually very much something from my own childhood, you know. But we won't get into too much detail about that one. Yeah,
the lyrics are very revealing. Let's just say that.
Puddle Fishing in particular is a great example of a nostalgic song in that it was actually about when I was very, very young. I don't know, must have been when I was about 4 years old. I used to go to this park and with my grandfather it was in Finglas where I grew up, and used to go into this park and I'd throw stones. Something I used to do was throwing little pebbles and stones into a puddle, you know. There was this kind of like everlasting puddle because, you know, it was always raining, and there was always this puddle in a specific place that was always there. And for some reason, in my mind as a child, throwing pebbles into a puddle was fishing. In my mind, I was fishing when I threw pebbles into this. So that was what it was a reference to, was puddle fishing. So all the lyrics in that song are extremely nostalgic and stuff that actually happened, you know, whereas some of the other songs are more abstract or whatever. But
Oh, that's lovely. That's a lovely image, that childhood image. I remember myself as a child, we used to go to the Broadmeadow River, which is not too far from Finglas indeed, and fish with a piece of string and a jam jar. And to us, that was fishing as well.
That is a bit closer to actual fishing, you know, rather than throwing stones. And I mean, it wasn't like I was hoping to catch fish somehow, but for some reason, as a child, this is what fishing was, you know.
Yeah. And so, Paul, you've only played 2 gigs in Ireland this year. Last night in the Roisin Dove and tonight in the Workmans Club. So what's the relationship with Ireland, and how do you find that your music is going down here, and would you like it to be more broadly known, or are you happy that you're better known abroad?
I'm not too sure. I mean, I kind of make do with the situation where we are more known abroad, especially in Germany and the Netherlands. But I mean, it's always nice to play here, because especially when you see people who, you know, good friends and people who are, you know, connected to you, who can actually come and just watch it firsthand, that you know, see on a regular basis anyway. But in terms of would I like to play more here, absolutely. You know, I mean, but I'm basically happy to play anywhere. It's the location is the last thing I think about. As long as it's possible, and as long as the place looks like it's going to be somewhere that we'll fit in as well, you know.
Yeah. And when I saw you in Whelan's that first time, and I think I talked to some of your band, maybe not yourself directly afterwards. I think Scott, the guitar player, is based in London, and I'm not sure where your drummer and bass player are from, but where do you gather your musicians, and how do you select who can tune into that Clockwork Orchestra frequency?
Well, a huge amount of it comes down to the bass player, who's been the kind of only vaguely permanent member in the band, which is Sean Maynard Smith, who was Dublin based but is now London based himself. He's from Dublin though, and he put me in contact with the drummer, Cahill, who wasn't playing with us tonight for various reasons, but he would play. He would be the current drummer. And then Scott, I did actually find myself on SoundCloud. I was just scanning SoundCloud for interesting things, and I found this band called The Gathering Doubt, and they're really worth. Well, I say they, it's him. It's just Scott. It's a solo project. Really worth a look. And I sent him an email, said, Scott, do you want to play guitar in a few gigs? And he said yes. So unfortunately, he's in about 1,000 other bands as well. So we only have him for a few gigs, but like he's a really talented guy, and you know, worth investigating. So it's and now Thibaut, who played with us tonight, another incredibly, you know, talented guitarist, was connected to Sean as well. So a lot of it comes through Sean, because I'm not one of these musicians in Dublin who knows everybody, because I'm a little bit reclusive by comparison to a lot of people in the music scene here. But luckily I have a few people who are a bit more connected. You know, so.
Absolutely. So we're not going to see you hanging around Whelan's at the weekend and growing your beard even longer.
It's been known, yeah. I'm trying to retire from that, but yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know the way, Paul, a lot of bands that we talk to here at Gigonometry, they've grown up together, you know, they've been in college together or whatever, but you're very much the solo artist who has to go out, and a bit like puddle fishing, you have to go out and fish for people who can actually kind of tune into you. Do you like being alone? Is that and there's so much going on in the album. I've listened to it about 100 times, and it's every night I put it on, there's something new to hear coming through. How do all of these thoughts and ideas connect musically in your brain, and how do you put it together in terms of recording?
Well, the thing is, I've been recording solo since I was about 17, you know, and I recorded an awful lot of things that nobody's ever heard. And originally, when I was about, I suppose it was about when I was about 18, 19, there was an album as such on CDRs that we kind of passed around amongst friends. It was really lo-fi, recorded on tapes and stuff like that. So I've been doing this sort of solo recording stuff for a very long time now. So it's almost like I don't even think about it when I'm doing it. It's just whatever. It's just second nature to me at this stage. But whatever I'm doing is just me, and it's at least I even though I know it's really ridiculous stuff at times, I like to think it's quite honest music, because it's really what I feel like doing. You know, I'm not marketing it towards any audience whatsoever. If there's an audience, then brilliant, you know, but if there's not, then there's not, you know. So
Okay, which is really great. So it's a bit like the life of a writer who gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning and plugs in their PC and starts tapping away. You have to get into this world and create this world for the prospective reader, or in your case, listener, who might never materialize. But that's not your goal.
There's even a song on the first album that I did tonight, the book that won't be read. It's the first song on the first album, which is about that whole thing. It's about the idea of like spending a lot of time working on anything, like a book or a song or whatever, anything creative, where you're wondering, you're kind of having these moments of self-doubt or consideration throughout the whole thing of whether, is anyone ever going to hear this thing? You know, I'm doing it because I'm passionate about it, but is there any audience for this beyond myself, you know? And that's what that whole song is about. Like, so it was relating to when I was recording the first album, because, you know, no matter how into it, you do still have moments of what the hell am I doing here? You know, why am I doing this? You know?
What's your driving force?
I definitely think there is definitely an ego side to it. You know, it is a thing of, you know, I feel like I've got this thing that I want to do anyway, so I would be doing it anyhow. So I may as well see if there's people who will appreciate that beyond myself, you know? So because to some extent you wonder, is there any point in doing it if you're going to be the only one that hears it? It's like if a tree falls in the forest or whatever, you know. So,
which is also a song by Bruce Cockburn as well.
Okay,
but
right,
you must check out at some point in time. We could probably talk for a lot longer, and it's very tempting to do so, but we probably should wrap it up. So I'd like to say a very, very big thank you to Paul Mangan, and the best of luck with the European tour, Paul, with Clockwork Orchestra coming up in the next few weeks in various countries such as, last word?
Germany, France, Belgium, Austria, Netherlands, and more.
Do try and catch them wherever they are. Thank you.